I like to read this quote that talks about the idea of something I'm going to get into more about the daemon, which also really relates to the part of spirit or the lot of spirit. He is surely happy Udaimon, who, learning the celestial configuration of his birth and hence recognizing his personal daimon, is enabled to neutralize by sacrifices the power of fate. And this is Porphyry with his letter to Anibo. So our journey, I first thought I'll give you a cursory view of talking about the historical nature of fortune and spirit. I think I at least have found this fascinating because it contextualizes and gives you a better sense of how to think about Fortuna and the part of spirit or the lot of spirit. Then I'm going to go more into the philosophical, metaphysical basis of it, and then rounding out for probably the last half, really nearly the half, we're getting to more practical and technical aspects of working with fortune and spirit. I know a lot of you are interested in doing chart work, either with your own charts or for others. So I'm not going to leave that untended. So in terms of the historical aspect of it, I want to kind of give you a paraphrased view of something called the myth of Ur. And it's a story from Plato's Republic. Maybe if you've read Plato's Republic, you're familiar with it. And it's about a Greek soldier who, 10 days after he was slain without apparent decay, is placed on a funeral pyre, and he wakes up and he recounts his journey from being in the afterlife. And essentially, I'm not going to read all of this to you because I'm not one of the kind of presenters who kind of reads what's on the slide. I trust you can read. So what I'm going to say in just encapsulating this is that as you see right here in terms of what I guess the summary of the story is that essentially as people pick their lives, um, going from their previous life into their next life, they have an attendant spirit that incarnates with them that is actually their guide with the choice that they pick. So they have their lots, which is one of the ways with which we get that word. Lots are thrown before them, and there are more lots than there are people. And so you do have a high degree amount of choice. But if you're rash, you may pick a poor lot, or if you're a lot more studious and alert, you may also pick a very good lot related to your life. And that spirit, the daemon or the genius, that's the Latinized version of it, incarnates with you in terms of your next life. Now, one of the reasons why I wanted to share this story with you is the idea of the daemon and to introduce that related to the idea of spirit, which is important, and then also with the lot of fortune and the idea of one's lot. Now, um, the next thing that we can get into is understanding, I will say interchangeably lot, and sometimes I say part. Simple reason. The reason why I say part is that's how I first learned it. And the reason why we say part is that this is translation that we understand from Arabic astrologers who translated Greek and Latinized text from the Abbasid Empire. So they used part, but the ancient term used was kleros, and I say kleros meaning from Greek, which relates to the same kind of thing as lot. And it's more so the idea of the portion that's been assigned to you. It was used the same way as we would use the idea of drawing straws, or even a lottery, as you saw in the myth of Ur. And that's kind of what I didn't read, but you would have some particular things thrown in front of you, lots, and then you could actually draw from. So they would either look like, straws, or things like that. So it's the same thing as we say lot or part. One of the things I wanted to introduce to you, and I won't dwell on this again, I would ask that you read the slide. And I say read the slide because, again, I'm going to give more of the encapsulation because I also want to get some of the juicier bits, but I wanted to share this with you, and I have a lot of excitement related to this because one thing I discovered from reading Dorian Geisler Greenbaum. And this is mainly from, she has a book on the daemon, but it also was her dissertation. So I have the fortune of her dissertation, is talking about the ancient roots of this from Greek thought that might relate more to Egyptian thought from the gods Shai and Renenet. And Shai becomes what we know as the Agathos daemon, or the good spirit, and Renenet could be more so described as the good fortune. This is the prelude to the conversation and the way by which we understand and know the lot of fortune and the lot of spirit. That Agathos daimon, Shai, was a snake-adorned god of fate, while Renenet was the goddess of nourishment, bestowing wealth, life, and protection. More the physical circumstances by which we have the sense of life, whereas Shai was more the sense of pure spirit, the sense of order, the sense of how we have the same sense of decree. One word that is used in Greek related to that sense of order is, as you see down there, haimarmene. And so haimarmene is more the same sense of what's been apportioned to you as your sense of fate. Okay. Okay, now I'm seeing, can't read the slide while you're talking. That must have been from before when I had the closed caption on. I don't know if that's still true. Someone please let me know if that's still true and you have trouble reading the slide. Okay, now let me move on. So there are some parallels to understanding fortune and diamond before we get into talking about the lots that perhaps you're already familiar with. And that's in the ways in which we have this Hellenistic model of the idea of the diamond and the idea of Tike or Taike, which is also related to the sense of fortune. And that's the dynamic between the 11th house and the 5th house. So the 11th house, as Valens describes, is an acquisitive place where you have a bestower of belongings and goods. And it's interesting to note when we have then the opposite in good fortune, related to more the experience of the good fortune in a tangible physical sense, again, where we have the sense of pleasure. And you might think about the experience of the lot of fortune as a prelude to what I'm going to be talking about, as how we have the experience of being in our bodies, what's tangible, as versus where we have the benefit of the gods or the lack of benefit of the gods uh, in the house of the good spirit. Now, Jupiter receives his joy in the 11th house, and Venus receives her joy in the 5th, which is interesting related to the idea of the benefics, where we have the experience of our blessings. But this is dual sided because we also have the place of the bad spirit, which is the 12th house, and then we also have the place of bad fortune, which is more so the 6th house. So we technically have two houses that deal with fortune and the idea of the daemon. And one thing that's noticeable about that is that we have the malefics in contrast in charge of dealing with the bad spirit and all these particular things. So we have a different notion here. And so Valens says, in reference to these lots, can indicate parts of the body, the bad fortune part, susceptible to injury, and the lot of spirit for indications of ailments. And by that, he means more that are spiritual. We might say now, because they're beyond the control of the person, they're more psychological or psychosomatic, which may be more the experience of how something impacts us that is unbeknownst to us.